Okay, so with that, we are going to begin. And friends, I do formally welcome you to the room. This is our 42nd online gathering for congregational leaders across the country. This time is called Being Church, and it's sponsored by ELCA's coaching ministry. I am Jill Beverlin. I am so blessed to be the National Coordinator of Coaching for the ELCA and one of your facilitators today. It's important for us to be reminded that this time is meant to be a safe and brave space for the people of our church to bring the truth of who they are and how they are doing. These conversations are an intentional step to live more fully into God's dream for us as the body of Christ. So today, friends, we are so pleased to bring Rachel Alley, Program Director for ELCA's Youth Ministry, back to our speaking space, and she's brought some friends with her. We are going to focus on our topic of growing young and bringing new life to our communities. And again, today's topic is empathy. Rachel, welcome to the space.
Thank you, everybody. It is so good to see you all again. And as I want to make sure, can you guys see my screen in the PowerPoint there? All right. Well, today's conversation is empathy, and I want to just go back just a little bit. Growing Young is a project of the ELCA to help our congregations grow younger. We are learning about, we've already learned in the past 2 months, strategies. There are 6 totally, but strategies to help our congregations grow younger. And here is our will with the 6 commitments or strategies on them. If you'll remember, we spoke with Emily and Hope about being the best neighbors. We heard last month from Kendall about keychain leadership, and I hope you also got to watch my video with Kashif and the interview with him. He's such a fantastic young man. And then today we're working on empathy. We're just coming on around the circle. And empathy is when churches fill with their young people. When this generation of young people are asking a lot of questions. In fact, they have 3 big questions, and we're going to talk about those in just a few minutes. But they want to be heard. They don't want to be told how to do things or the way things used to be, but instead, they want you to know that you feel exactly what they're feeling, that you are almost walking in their shoes or sitting on the side of the curb with them, having a chat, or maybe in a swing talking with them. Well, I want to share a video with you. It was created by Growing Young, but it is a wonderful example of a congregation and how a woman empathized with another young woman at the church.
Discipleship was not a word that I heard growing up. No one said, oh, I disciple so-and-so. We just kind of did it. The Lord was pushing me to step out and essentially started learning the message of discipleship. Kind of felt like a burning bush experience where the Lord was like, it's time to start passing that on. So the next question is like, oh, well, great, to who?
My family had come to fellowship when I was in the 7th grade, and they put me in a youth group. And I didn't like youth group because I'm an old church. I was the only black kid in my youth group. I didn't want to feel singled out. I had the worst attitude. I didn't want to be there.
We were all in this tiny room, 4 middle school, high school girls, and I barely know any of them. I thought, all right, there could be a divine appointment in this room. So I'm just going to keep praying, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to let God speak. And I kid you not, there was one in the room who was like, not having anything artificial.
And she sat beside me, and I was like, who is this woman? Like, why is she here? Like, she's 20-something, and she keeps talking to us and wants to be like our Sunday school teacher, but it's not even Sunday school. But she like had this gentle like persistence about her that I didn't notice.
That night, I just started dreaming of this young girl. Sometimes we were going on walks, sometimes we were going on runs, sometimes we were sitting around at a table, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna ask her to coffee because 13-year-olds like coffee.
I was 13, 14, didn't drink coffee. I was like, I mean, I guess. I don't have nothing else to do. Are you gonna pick me up?
I knew it was an obedient move. I want to have it all together, but Lord, I don't know what's next. I'm sitting at coffee with a 13-year-old. I don't know what to say. He's like, just pursue an honest conversation. Just talk to her.
I remember she asked me a question about like someone's relationship in the youth group. I think they're gonna break up. And usually if I talk to an adult like that about another adult, the adult would say like, well, you don't know anything, like you're just a little girl, or like that's rude, how do you know? But she didn't say that to me. She kind of had a conversation with me about what I just said, and it wasn't a conversation of like correction, it was just a conversation between a person and a person. I mean, when you're 13 and you're in school and you have parents and everyone's older than you and telling you what to do, but then this one person comes into your life and like, here's what you say. Like, I'm really emotional, but that like melted my heart. And I think that gave like she could have said anything to me after that and I would have hurt her. So, I mean, she calls me her sister and we're sisters.
People are not projects. We started sitting down and meeting. We were for sure going to see each other on Sundays, but all of a sudden, a project didn't emerge. There wasn't this point where I go, okay, I'm discipling you and you're my disciple. It expanded what I really think that God meant for discipleship to be. This has been the one thing where I feel that I've been blessed in every way. She's a gift, she's a little sister. It's just meant the world to me.
See people as people. Don't come with all the answers and all the help, but have a conversation with someone and taking things slow and looking at people as if they're royalty, because they are. Treat people, like they're your friend, and actually mean it in your heart.
I love that video. And people are people and they just want to hear your heart. And were a number of occasions in my life growing up where my pastor would open up I would know on Wednesdays and Wednesday nights after choir practice and Saturday mornings that he was there to be able to listen to me and be able to talk to me. And there were others in the congregation too, like Miss Ann and Miss Jean, and they were my other mothers. But they weren't just mothers. They listened. They knew me and they listened to me. That's what our young people are wanting, because they've got 3 really big questions that they're trying to figure out. And honestly, I think we could say that we all are trying to figure these out, but who am I? You know, that has to do with identity. Where do I fit in? And what difference do I make? That's our purpose. You know, what am I doing in this life? Those are 3 really big questions that young people are asking today. And the research, I think young people have always been asking those questions, right? Perhaps you might have as a teen too. Something else I want to share with you, just to help you maybe think about empathy in a bigger way, especially with what our younger generations are going through. So growing up for me, this is the timeline. Maybe this looks familiar for some of you too as well, but you know, went to high school, then I went to college, got my first job, then married and had kids. For many of our older generations, this has been the norm over the years. Well, take a look at this slide. This is what our young people are experiencing today. There's still those that might be on that same timeline, but there are plenty of young people that are choosing not to go to college right away, but instead are taking gap years or traveling abroad. where there would be no way on earth, and I'm telling my age here, that I would have lived with my husband before we got married. That today is a common instance for our young people living together. Internships, I didn't know what an internship was, and I knew what student teaching was. That's all. But to have opportunities to be able to intern across the world globally these days is another common practice that our young people are doing. In fact, even in our ELCA offices, we have summer interns that will come from all over the United States just to serve in our office. All these different opportunities are happening for our young people. So they're not on that same trajectory that most of us or some of us found ourselves on. The other thing too, and you've probably heard some of these words used before, but um, um, the generations, the younger generations, they're unreliable, and they're called millennials, and they only care about themselves, and they're selfish, and they're inconsiderate, and they don't care about other young people. Stereotyping and labeling of our young people can really get into the way of building relationships with them. And so instead, looking at them as individuals and as persons is way more important. And then two skills that I'd like for you to consider. One is to begin to learn how to use the words and the phrase, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And consider not, unless you're asked, consider not sharing your own experiences unless it feels exactly right. But instead, hear more when you're in conversation with a young person, hear more about their own story and what they're going through. And like I said, feel with them, um, get heart to heart level with them. And the other thing I would ask you to do is put young persons on your calendar. We're about to hear from Kate Reynolds and Pastor John Goswin. And there is no doubt in my mind that Pastor John and the many members of his congregation put their young people on their calendar. And so, John and Kate, thank you for being with us today and for just sharing a little bit about your congregation, Family of Christ in Nebraska. So Kate, will you tell us a little bit more about you today?
Sure. My name is Kate Reynolds, and I live in Kearney, Nebraska. I am 17 years old, and I am a junior in high school. And I go to Family of Christ Lutheran Church, as Rachel said. And thank you for having us here today.
Sure, sure. And John, how about you too, just so everybody knows who you are?
I'm a pastor of the ELCA. Came out of Christ Seminary Seminex way back in the heyday, but have been serving here in Nebraska, in the middle of Nebraska. And actually, it's a place that I remember visiting when I was younger and thinking, this is a nice place, but I don't know if I'd want to live here. Now I've been here 30 years. And we came in '89 because of the congregation of Family of Christ. It's a small congregation in town, nearby a neighbor that is a bigger Lutheran church, but the two of us work well together. And we're also connected with, and it was part of my family connection, connected with Mosaic Bethpage Village in Axtell, which is a service project. That's a home that works with profoundly handicapped individuals.
Yes, yeah. Well, so John and Kate, thanks for being here today. And as you saw that video just a minute ago, and in stories that I have heard about your church, I hear that young people are important and are lifted up. Kate, can you tell me a little bit more about the people at Faith and maybe a person who listens to you and walks alongside you?
Well, my church has always been and is very supportive and encouraging in what I'm doing and in my life. And I would say definitely one of the people in my life is who encourages me and is always listening to me is Pastor John.
Nice. And what does he do? How does he do this?
He's always willing to listen to me and supporting and encouraging me.
Awesome. Awesome. So John, does this come naturally for you, or do you have to work at it?
I think Kate is so gracious. Thank you. Because I can think of so many times that, you know, there've been so many things that are on the schedule. I don't think that I intentionally did these two skills of tell me more and put young people on the calendar. I think it's just something that happened. I'm glad it was lifted up, but Kate is to be commended for actually putting herself into that position. And I think it's wise for us as pastors to see somebody who's really interested. I think more often than not, we're kind of surprised that somebody offers this interest in what's this faith life about? How does this apply to my life? How can I be more involved in it? And I think it's not so much a natural inclination on my part as it is a joyful surprise, a serendipitous thing that, gosh, I'm delighted that somebody is taking interest in it.
So during these times of COVID, Kate, who have you, and it's kind of lonely out there, who have you is there been adults in the congregation or other adults that have been there to be able to listen to you?
There has one of our college age student who works at our church, we work together on a regular basis in different areas of ministry at our church. He's always very supportive and encouraging of my ministry and what's going on in my life too.
Awesome.
And in fact, that college age student is living out slide number 7 that you've got there. If you wanted to go back to that slide. We could talk about how many things this college age student has been doing. He probably is another one that was trying to go the normal track, but then found he needed, Kate, I think you know this too, Micah's journey was supposed to be just attending college. And instead he just found he needed some other learning opportunities. And he was able to come into our mix. God be praised. We had just that mix of people coming on the journey together and realizing we need to hear each other and then explore what kind of gifts we have and be able to do things in that type of partnership. Rachel, I think one of the things that I think is an ingredient in this is maybe recognizing with a little bit of humility that and in one sense, COVID has kind of created this for us, that we've needed to rely on each other's gifts more and feel less like we are the ones who are the ones who know it all. We may know what the journey has been so far, but there's a wonderful humility that comes from not knowing what's next and then realizing I've got other gifted people around that I need to listen to their story and have them participate a little more instead of feeling like I have to be the one in control. Some of those very gifted people are very young.
Yes.
Yeah, and they offer some insights and also an opportunity to make some glorious mistakes that can be a way of the church learning again to be forgiving and starting to do things in a new way.
Yes. Yes, John, while you're talking, I was thinking about a conversation that I had with Lisa Cramey, who works with your works in your Senate office, and she said that the culture at Family of Christ is a culture of empathy, where people care for one another and listen to one another, and especially the young people. Is that something that you do? Do you do any sort of practices, or does it just come naturally with the people in your congregation? How do you, I guess, maybe fertilize the ground to make that happen in your congregation?
Wow. No plan of action. Um, Kate, I'd like for your agreeing or disagreeing. I'd like for you to just comment on this too. One of the things that is peculiar for us that may create some sense of that empathy, this congregation is linked with Mosaic Bethpage Village. People who are normally treated as though we do church for them, that they cannot, that they don't have some type of gift themselves. We've taken, for 20 years now, we've taken our confirmation students down to Axtell to do worship services with them. And in the context of that, the students, I think, have gained a sense of working with persons who are bearing disabilities, and then realizing they have something to offer to the rest of the community. Now, translate that back into the parish life. And what that does is slow us down from just doing things the way we normally do. And it creates a sense of listening to people who may not be able to speak as well, or who may not be able to participate as well. Kate has been, in the meantime, you know, what's matured from this is Kate has been very active, not just with me at Axtell and in our reaching out to our community around us, but we've translated this into, I really saw Kate's gifts sprout when she started to take our worship services to a local senior care center on Sunday morning at a time that I couldn't go, but she was leading some of our young people to do it. I found that some of the older people didn't want to necessarily be involved. They feel intimidated by some folks that are just maybe carrying handicaps, or who they just don't want to get into an elderly center because they find it too difficult. But here Kate has learned to do worship differently in this setting, rather than just the regular setting. And she's been taking kids under, in the usual ways, she's been taking kids under her wing in doing it. So I guess now coming back to the answer to your question, how did we train it? It was not intentional. It was found that if we started to focus on what do the I don't want to say disadvantaged among us, but what do the persons who may not be as vocal or be as active, or may not be old enough, what is it that they have to say that we need to incorporate, and then change our worship culture with it?
Yeah.
Does that partially answer your question, Rachel?
Absolutely, completely. And while you maybe don't think you've intentionally done that, you have done that through the actions, and certainly Kate and her involvement in the stories that she has about you and others in the congregation is it's clear that it is a culture that has been created at Family of Christ. So, well, thank you all so much for participating today. We're about to go into breakout rooms, and so I've got 2 questions for you to think about. We'll come back at 10 till 2 and answer any other final questions. I did want to tell you, though, one thing before we go. If you have the book Growing Young, and if you read chapter 3, which is on empathizing with young people today, there's tons and tons of information in there. But the very first story is about a young man named Steve. It ends up being Steve Jobs. And I think often about the story that's in this book, and I'm not going to give it away. I want you to read the book. But had Steve Jobs stuck with us in the Lutheran Church? That's all I'm going to say. So these are your breakout questions today. So young people wrestle with 3 ultimate questions. Who am I? A question of identity. Where do I fit? A question of belonging. And what difference do I make? A question of purpose. So we all struggle with these questions, but why do you feel that teens and young adults feel more intensely about these questions than older generations these days? And then the second is describe your ministry setting. And is there already a culture of empathy towards all ages and especially young people? And then what are shifts maybe that you even heard today from John, or things that you're thinking about to create a culture of empathy? So we'll see you back in 20 minutes.
Hey, Rachel.
Oh, yeah. Kate.
I'd like to share one thing. You know, really, it's this opportunities I've been given, they've just kind of happened. And it's been through giving, I encourage you to give young people and other individuals opportunities and invitations to lead, and teach them about what you're doing and what they're doing, why it's important, and just encourage them and affirm them in that and what they are doing and the gifts that they have to offer. You know, and it really just started with small things for me, and it's grown into more and more opportunities, and through that, through those opportunities to lead in my church, it has really not only helped me to find my passion for ministry, but also to grow in my faith and strengthen it, and also strengthen my relationship with my church and the people in it, that I don't know what have happened if it hadn't been for those opportunities.
Yeah. And for those people in your life. And Kate, I am sure that it's not a one-way street, that you are making a difference in the people that you encounter at your church too. And I know certainly by watching you lead worship on Sundays and Wednesdays as worship assistant and doing other things, you are making a difference in other people's lives too as well. Okay, well, we will see you back in 20 minutes. Have a great conversation.
Yeah, welcome back to the room, everyone. Hope that you had life-giving conversation. And as is our habit, we would like to hear what themes were bubbling up in your small group conversations. What are some nuggets that you'd like to share with the rest of the group? Marcus, you have a big grin on your face. You must be sitting on some fantastic knowledge that you can't wait to share. Oh, you're muted, friend.
No, I'm just triggered by memories that people have of past encounters who were in the group that I was a part of. But I do think that in our group, folks were saying the encouragement is to not be reluctant to engage with youth, including using Zoom in these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And what obstacle am I hearing in that statement, Marcus? What do people feel is the obstacle of engaging?
First of all, laziness. You know, I think it takes a decision to say, I'll do it. In my case, I'm getting ready to begin an interim, and we have a bright, gifted young person who's a part of the transition team. And she's clearly gifted and competent. And so I'm making my own resolve to make sure I have an early a Zoom conversation with her, because this congregation's been doing very little with youth or children, even though it's a good sized congregation.
Okay. All right. I love your transparency and your willingness to be authentic, Marcus. Thank you for naming that. Yeah, Barbara, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. You talked about a brilliant idea. So one of our members was talking about the youth elder exchange. And instead of having the elders reach down, they have the youth agree to make phone calls to their elders. And they have been developing a relationship that way. And one of them reported that she's a mom, and she came home and saw someone's on the phone. She said, "Who are you talking to?" She said, "Oh, I'm just talking with John. I was thanking him for his service on Veterans Day." The youth called the adult. I went, wow. I mean, this is, so I'm stealing this idea. This is really good.
Barbara's world has shifted, friends. I can see it.
Yes,
We've just witnessed it. Yeah, Jackie, I saw you reacting to some of the things that were being said. Something you want to share with the group? No. Jackie's one of the most talented writers I know. So I know there's a lot in there. I read so much of your stuff, Jackie. I love you.
Thank you. You might have me confused with somebody else. Thank you.
Not with you, Jackie Pago.
I had left my group and I asked them, what do we do to encourage buy-in from the adults to value youth in our communities? What things can we do? So many of these growing young conversations and the things that have just come up here, I am continuously flustered by too many in our congregations do not appreciate the contributions of our young people. If you're not 45 in the church, nobody really cares what you have and what you have to offer. And there's something to be said for all this that we're saying here. This is great, and I so appreciate it. But what are we going to do to encourage our peers, the people, obviously not sitting next to us on the pews because we're not in churches right now, but the people that we regularly encounter, to see how great of a gift we have, even if there's only one person under 45 in that community, how fortunate that community is to have that person and anything and everything that we can learn from them. So this idea of empathy, I just want to say, do you guys remember what it was like to be 17? Why should we have to train you on this is what you say and this is what you do? Just think about it. What was it like for you when you were 17? What do you wish somebody had said to you? What do you wish you could have done? And go and do it and be it. So that was what my expressions were. I
hear a very strong call to action there, Jackie Pago. So thank you for that. An opportunity for us to shine a light. Yeah, preach. To shine a light on the youth and what they're doing, and shine a light on that pathway so those connections can happen. Yeah. So David, I was initially put into your room and had to jump out. I'm wondering what conversation transpired.
Just pick on me, hey. Because I ain't been here for a while, so you're just gonna pick on me.
Camille put me up to it, so.
Oh, okay. And she got bumped off too, so maybe there's a conspiracy. It was actually enlightening in our group because each one of us have had, from what I gathered, have had some success and are putting things in place that help us to reach our young people and to make the young people feel wanted and desired in our congregations. For some degree, it's more so a number of our older ones who feel that it's the young people that have the problems and don't even try to eradicate those problems. So it's something that the three of us are working on, bridging the gap, and helping both the young people and the adults to come together and empathize with each other. And while they have a desire to empathize with the young people, the lack of understanding, I guess, is in the way at times. And the idea that the young people have to do what they did, have to learn how they learned, gets in the way.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Rachel, Kate, back to you. Thank you, David, for those
Yes.
comments.
Yeah, good conversation. Kate, there's a question in the chat for you. It says, this is from Linda. As you indicate how the adult can participate as a teacher too, could you say more about how they can do that?
I would say just don't be afraid to invite a young person or, anyone really in your congregation, or just invite them to do something and to lead. And I think in doing so, that helps others to see, hey, younger people can lead. They can, and they can lead well in the church. I know with Pastor John giving me those opportunities, other people saw that and have encouraged me in that. So.
And then there's a question about child protection policies too, as well. First of all, thank you for even considering child protection policies. And I know it totally depends upon your church. Every congregation is different. But still, you can have conversations by phone with young people, or sitting on the pew at church when we get back in person, or maybe meeting at a coffee shop in a public place. And if it is somebody that's under 18, I would always ask for parents' permission. And let somebody else know that you're meeting or gathering with them, just to have a conversation with them, and then possibly even following up with them if, depending upon the circumstance, with another person, just to say, hey, I met with Kate from 2 to 4 at the coffee shop, and just to keep some checks and balances there for you. So I hope that is helpful. Kate, I've got one more, well, maybe 2 more questions for you, and then we got to go. And I know that you have a blessing for everybody, or a prayer for everybody. But just how are you listening to other young people? And then in the, like, your friends and stuff like that, how are you also exercising empathy and listening to others?
Well, I would say I try to encourage those in the youth in my church that are younger than me to participate, and just encourage them, and tell them, they have gifts and they can use them.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. And I'm sure you had to listen to a lot of their stories too, as well, along the way, because I know you're helping with confirmation. So they have stories and baggage and everything else that they need a mentor like you to listen to them. So I thank everybody for joining us today. If you've got any questions about Growing Young, this project of the ELCA, please email me at rachel.alley@elca.org. And Kate, thank you, and to Pastor John for being with us today to talk about empathy, and to talk about actually just to give us a glimpse of hope in the church. I so appreciate you and your willingness to be with us today. And I'm going to share my screen like I told you I would.
I would like to lead us with a verse and a blessing and a prayer to send us off. Finally, all of you have united unity of spirit, sympathy, love for everyone, love for one another, a tender heart, and a humble mind. 1 Peter 3:8. As Christians, we are to be imitators of God and have compassion for one another. When we put ourselves in someone's shoes, we are showing empathy. Jesus showed his care for the sick, the blind, the deaf. I can only imagine the conversations he had with those teenage disciples and the empathy he showed for them. Throughout Scripture, the empathy he showed, throughout Scripture, we are taught to be humble ourselves and look at the interest of others and to bear the burdens of our brothers and sisters. Let us pray. Lord, I give thanks for all these people who have gathered online to learn more about empathy. You planted your love in the smallest of all packages, and soon we will celebrate his birth. May we all be like Jesus, unafraid to listen and feel others' hurt, especially to young people, so that through us they will see you. Keep everyone safe and well until we gather again. Amen.
Amen. Kate, thank you so much for that prayer, that blessing. Rachel, you just connect us with the best people and are expanding our minds and amplifying our imagination about what it might mean to grow young and bring new life to church. So
Yeah.
friends, God bless you. Thank you for being with us today. We welcome you back next week. We will hold the space for those that need to hear God's blessings, encouragement of hope, and just space to bring whatever the season is bringing to your door and you need to unpack. Jason and I will be here along with Tammy to journey with you as we, as Dr. Clark said recently in a meeting, as we journey closer and closer to the manger. So thank you again, friends, for this life-giving time. And Tammy will be on with you for the next 25 minutes or so. And we will, oh, John's back. Pastor John, thank you so much for your presence with us today. We appreciate you. And Tammy will hold the space for some additional conversation.